So let's talk about a really interesting challenge. How you sell something as basic as a brick or a bag of cement in an age of TikTok and AI. We're going to break down some amazing insights from a recent building materials event in Bangladesh to really build out a modern blueprint for marketing. Let's dive in.
I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? When your product is literally the foundation of a house, how do you get the attention of a customer who's constantly scrolling, comparing, and researching everything on their phone? It's a puzzle this very traditional industry is finally having to solve. So, to figure that out, we've got to start with the basics. Let's lay the groundwork and take a look at what the market for building materials in Bangladesh actually looks like today. And what you find is a market that's pretty much split right down the middle. There's a massive difference between what people buy in the big, bustling cities versus out in the countryside. And on top of that, there's this intense battle going on between homegrown Bangladeshi brands and the huge multinational giants. This whole dynamic really sets the stage for everything else. Okay, let's zoom in on the steel market. Branded steel? That's mostly an urban thing. Out in rural areas, you're going to see a lot more non-branded stuff. But here's the kicker. The person paying the bills isn't always the one making the choice. It's the engineers and the contractors who have a ton of influence. They recommend the products they trust, and their opinion can literally make or break a sale.
Now, with cement, something pretty incredible has happened. If you looked a decade ago, you'd see all these big multinational names. But today, local companies have completely flipped the script. They were smart, they expanded their reach out to the smaller regional markets, and they've now grabbed the lion's share of the industry. It's a huge win for local business for sure.
And then you've got ceramics, which adds a whole other layer of complexity. This isn't just a simple sale. You have this whole chain of 5 key people, from the dealers stocking the product all the way to the fitter who's actually laying the tile. And with ceramics, it doesn't matter if you're in the city or a village. People want to buy from a shop that's close by. Having it available locally isn't a nice to have, it is absolutely essential.
So what does all this mean for the future? Well, these charts tell you everything you need to know. The amount of steel and cement used per person in Bangladesh is still way lower than in developed countries. And it's even lower than neighbors like India. The key thing here is that this market is nowhere near saturated. The potential for growth as the country keeps developing is just massive.
All right, so that's the market. But what's really driving all the change? Well, it's one thing: the modern customer. They are completely rewriting the rules of the game.
See, in the past, a buyer might have just shrugged and taken their contractor's word for it. Not anymore. The power has totally shifted. Today's customer, they start their journey online, they're actively digging for information, they're comparing brands, checking out quality reports, and then they make an informed choice based on data, not just on what someone told them.
And look, if you remember one thing about this new customer, let it be this. This quote just nails the single biggest shift in how people think. When you're building a home, your home, you want it to be safe, right? You want it to last for generations. People are now willing to invest more in quality because they get it. Long-term safety is worth so much more than short-term savings.
So if you're a brand trying to sell, who do you actually need to talk to? Well, it really boils down to these 3 key people: the contractor running the whole project, the plumber or fitter who's got their hands on the materials every day, and of course the homeowner, who is way more involved and educated than ever before. If you can win over these 3, you're in a great spot. Okay, so we've got the market and we've got the new customer. So what do you do about it? Well, that brings us to our 3rd section. It's all about realizing that the new game is about building trust, not just buildings. All right, let's talk branding. And you can probably forget everything you think you know. In this industry, branding is not about a fancy logo or a clever TV ad. Branding is the absolute bedrock of trust. It's that silent promise that says, this steel rod will hold, or this cement will set right, and that the company will have your back if something goes wrong. So how in the world do you build that kind of trust? You can't just throw money at an ad and hope for the best. The new playbook is simple. Stop shouting and start teaching. Instead of just running commercials, the smart companies are educating their customers. They're explaining what makes good steel, how to spot quality cement. This educational approach, it builds a kind of long-term loyalty that an ad just never could. And where is all this education happening? Right here. These platforms are the new research libraries. Customers are on YouTube watching product tests, they're in Facebook groups asking real people for recommendations, they're even using AI tools to compare technical specs. The bottom line is if your brand isn't showing up and being helpful on these platforms, to the modern buyer, you're basically invisible. This all leads us right to our final section, where we're going to look at what's next. The future of this industry isn't just one thing or the other. It's a powerful mix of the old and the new. The future, it turns out, is both local and digital.
So this is the obvious question, right? If everyone's online, why not just sell everything online? Can you really just buy a ton of steel rebar with a single click? Well, it's not quite that simple.
Look, e-commerce definitely has its place, and it's a really valuable one. For Bangladeshis living overseas who are building a house back home, it's a perfect solution. They can't be there to physically check the materials, so a trusted online store is a total game changer. But for most local customers, buying building materials is still a very hands-on decision. They want to see it, touch it, and feel it before they spend their money. And that right there, that's the big takeaway. The winning strategy isn't about choosing one or the other. It's about blending them. Success means having your products on the shelf in local shops where people can see them and combining that with a smart, educational, trust-building digital presence that helps guide them there in the first place. So let's just end on this one thought. In an industry that sells the most basic, functional things you can imagine, the most valuable currency has become trust. It just proves that no matter how digital the world gets, building a real, genuine, reliable connection with your customer is the strongest foundation for anything. I mean, if a brand can build that much trust with a simple brick, what can't it build?